Hi, I'm Reverend Jillian Edwards, your host for Tales from the Reading Room. Today's guest is a medium, an artist, and well-known rescue medium. I can't wait to get this conversation started. So go put the kettle on, get cozy, and let's learn more about this medium's journey. Today on the podcast, my guest is Jackie Dennison. She's a clairvoyant medium and psychic artist. She's no stranger to radio and television. In fact, she was the co-host of the very popular international TV program, Rescue Mediums. She's also a psychic artist. Her psychic art is featured in a book entitled Spirit Paintings and Art from the Afterlife by Maximilian de Lafayette. She's the co-owner of Feathers Academy in Cheshire, England, where she provides readings and healings in a wide variety of modalities. Not only that, but she teaches a variety of courses and holds retreats in both the UK and Canada. She has a very long list of experience. She's a mom, a wife, and not only that, she's also a very busy lady. But I'm extremely happy that she has time to be with us today. So, Jackie, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Gillian. I've been really looking forward to this, not only just to be able to talk to you again, because we met some years ago in person, which was lovely, but also to explore, wonderful spiritual realms,
Yeah. My first question I ask all our guests, your reading room, the reading room you work out of, can you describe it to the listeners?
Well, my spirit guide, or one of my spirit guides, my main guide is Egyptian. So my reading room is Egyptian. Everything in there is purple and gold with Egyptian pictures on the walls. I have everything all around me. So I feel as though almost I'm in ancient Egypt when I'm there. So I'm connecting with the moment when I'm connecting with him. We're in the Oriental room today, purely and simply because the sound quality is much better in here. But this room here, I also work in when I do sort of past life work, or if I was to do like one-to-one meditations in here.
Yeah.
And that's because this room is connected to an Oriental guide called Lao. And so this is the Oriental room. So we're in the red Oriental room today.
Wow. I read something that the building that you're in, where you have feathers, is quite old. Was your place haunted when you got it?
Oh, of course it was. Yes. Well, I believe that the building chose us. We didn't choose it. The building chose us because the people here who lived here they're still milling around, and not all of them, because we'll be overcrowded. However, there are definitely one or two that they let you know in no uncertain terms that they're here. I mean, this building was built in 1793. So it's a quaint little cottage, two up, two down, So the front room is actually our shop area. There is no running water in here, so it's exactly as it was built.
Wow.
In the front room there is the big old cooker where Mum would cook and do all
Right.
the do the cooking and everything else, brew the tea and everything else on that fire. And so everything is exactly the same as it was when it was built. So they feel very comfortable here. Spirit feel very comfortable here. And of course, we have a portal here that we opened with Spirit's help. And so that portal is actually in my Egyptian room. And it's manned by a fantastic spirit guide who I work with remote sort of spirit work. If there's a spirit trapped somewhere and I can't get there, like on Rescue Mediums, I could go to the house, and that's what I do in person here in England. if I can't get there, then we work remotely. So we have that portal here that is manned for that purpose. So it can get quite, yeah, quite hectic.
So for people who maybe are just getting to know spiritual stuff and starting to learn about it, would you be able to describe what a portal is and the purpose of it?
Sure. It's a doorway to another realm, another vibration. You can't physically see it, but you can feel it. I use my hand chakras for everything. I'm terrible. I'm a touchy. You have to touch the walls. You go into a building and there's a red tape that says, please do not touch. Jackie has to touch. I'm that sort of person. So you can actually feel the energy with a portal. You're aware of that vibration there. It feels a little bit different if you were to feel either side of it. You're just aware of something subtle, but it's there all the same. So the portal here at Feathers is to allow spirit to go from those that may be just wandering around on the earth plane, not quite sure where they're going. They go through there. They're guided through there by spirit helpers that we have into the spirit world so they can get the help they need. They can be directed to where they need to go. However, you can have a portal that is like a revolving door, a two-way door. And that's happened on occasions when I've gone to properties that are having problems and they've got a portal they did not know they had where spirit are coming from the spirit world, from the lower realms, because they're trapped on that realm. Then we need to have a negotiation to find out how we can help them to go over and seal that so that they can't come back out again. So that's a portal. It's a doorway to another realm.
Thank you. That's great. I want to get into more about your spirit release and things like that. But before we go there,
Mm.
I'm just wondering if you can talk about the beginnings of when you sense spirit and what drew you to be a medium, because some people are afraid of the odd experience they have. What was it like for you?
When you're a child and you are aware of spirit friends and everybody says, oh, it's just an imaginary friend. Well, I had spirit animals that I connected to, not realizing that other people couldn't see them. So I was probably about 8 or 9 when I had my first experience. So I bent down to stroke a little dog. I was with my friend, and my friend said, what are you doing? And I'm stroking this little dog that I thought was there. And she said, there's nothing there. And that's when I realized that I could see it and she couldn't. So I've seen other animals in that way. And then probably when I was about maybe a year or so after that, I actually saw a spirit person. Didn't know it was a spirit person because he was solid. Now, I don't normally see solid like that. That was my very, very first experience of seeing someone solid who I was waiting for my aunt to come home from work. So I was just waiting at the bottom of the road. And this man came past and told me his name was George and said, you know, um, what are you doing here? I said, oh, I'm waiting for my Auntie Jean. And he said, oh, just say hi to her from me. Just tell her that George was asking about her. So I said, yes, okay, I will, thank you. And off he went, and I saw him disappear into the house that he was going into. So when Jean arrived, my Auntie Jean, when she arrived, I gave her the message and she said, where did he go to? So I pointed the house out. She said, oh no, that can't be right. She said, he died 2 years ago. So yeah, and that's when I realized, I think it didn't scare me though. That's the thing. I wasn't freaked out by it at all. I suppose I should have realized then that they've got something in store, but you don't. And then of course things, you start to do everything that you should do. You're learning your lessons at school. We have to live in a materialistic world. So everything went on a back burner till I was in my teens, and then I went searching. I searched every avenue. So I went into sort of Wicca. I went into I even looked at black magic, because I didn't, you're learning, you want to know what's going on. I didn't follow that path, thankfully, but I looked into all the different ways of communicating with spirit because I really wanted to. Because I really wanted to, it didn't happen. It never happened. I
Right.
never saw anything. So then, of course, go to work, you get married, you have children, all the normal things. And then when I was much older, probably my late 20s, early 30s, I just got really interested in what happens when we die. You know, where do we go to? This can't be the end, surely. So I was interested in this kind of thing. And I was really, really lucky because my sister-in-law at the time, Christine Hamlet, she was very into spiritual sort of stuff. So we started going to the spiritualist church. And that's where it all started. And whilst we were visiting the spiritualist church, the medium came to us, or one medium came to us after the service and said, I think you two better come and learn how to become mediums.
Mm.
So, yeah, and the rest is history, so to speak.
Wow.
So,
So how
yeah.
long before you started working? Was it a year? Was it a couple of years?
Well, we trained for over a year with this particular medium. Her name's Alison Bird. We trained with her, and we had to travel to her house. It was over an hour's ride away every Friday night for over a year. And then
Wow.
it's sort of spirit took hold of what was happening with us, and we found ourselves in situations where we were learning from each other. We were mainly learning from spirit, and they moved us away from Alison because that was our time with her had finished,
Yeah.
and no doubt she's gone on to train other people. We started then. They said, you need to do this yourself. You need to, what you have learned, you need to show other people. So that's how it started.
Your psychic art. I just find that so interesting. Was that part of your training or did that just start to develop as a result of
No, that it's not something that we learned as as a course as part of the development. It's something that happened naturally. Christine has always been a very good artist, and so when we first started to do readings, we would always read together. So which is a bit odd, but it worked for us. And so she would always do a drawing. Prior to doing the reading, she would do a drawing that she would give to the client. And I would do what I call my tick list, which of course is the premonitions part of rescue mediums. And
right?
I still do that now. I've always done it. So, so with the psychic art, it's something that's developed over the years, and it developed as a result of spirit rescue work initially. Whether we were working here in Canada, also I work in Spain, so sometimes I'd use psychic art in that sort of way. But what it has evolved to now is I do spirit guide portraits now for people. So I would have a photograph of the person who wants the spirit guide portrait so that I could see their eyes. And I would I would meditate and ask a spirit guide who wants to connect with that person to step forward and to guide me into. So I'd have their spirit guide that I was able to see here in the mind's eye. And I would have my spirit helpers, artists in spirit who would direct me what to draw. So I'd have 3 or 4 different artists who've got different styles, you know.
Wow.
So that's how it's evolved. And they always give a channeled message. So I tend to get messages as I'm drawing that I have to write down, I have to jot things down, otherwise I forget. I'm terrible. A woman of a certain age just goes. So I have to write everything down.
Right.
And then at the end of when I finish the portrait and I feel that it's finished, because sometimes they'll make me go back to it. They will give me the whole message then, and it usually comes that's the automatic writing part of it. It comes really, really quickly. Sometimes I do it straight onto the computer. It's like, no, you don't do it that way, you do it this way. And that's because I'm a touch typist. That's how I trained. So I can type quicker than I can write. And so they'll give it to me like that, because sometimes, as you know, Gillian, they will give you like huge downloads of
Yes.
information really, really quickly, almost too quick for the speech. So that's what they do. Yeah. So
So
that's my spirit art.
that is awesome. It's really interesting to hear Do you just do it through photograph, or is the person present ever?
I have had the person present with me, but more often than not, it's with the photograph. So that because, I have a lot of clients in Canada, I
Mm,
have clients in the USA, I have a lot of clients in Australia as well. So, they obviously can't be in front of me. I could do the
right.
Zoom like this and do the guide portrait, but it can take anything from 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes to 4 or 5 hours. It
Yeah.
depends how much information is being given whilst I'm doing it, so, and I've got to be in the right headspace. I owe it to the guides I'm working with to be in the right headspace to be able to work. So if I've got things going on at home, or I've got a lot of clients and my energy level's low, I can't do the psychic art at that time frame. I need to allocate a day, a time when I'm going to be working in that way. I love doing artwork anyway, but I work in pastels normally. I've done a few in oils, and I draw. Sometimes it's just drawings with pencil or charcoal, but more often than not, it's the pastels, because I love the colours, and I'm
Yeah.
smudging. I get covered in it, but you know what? Hey ho.
It just sounds so beautiful. So always a message comes with the art? Is that
Mhm.
usually what happens?
Yeah.
So when the way you described that with the person's guide present, plus your guides, plus your drawing guides.
Uh-huh.
And when I was reviewing your biography, you talked a lot about spirit guides and the cooperation they have in your life.
Mm.
Could you just describe what that is and how they work with you?
Well, we have many different guides that we have right from childhood, right the way through. It's a bit like, when you go to high school or you go to university, and you have an English teacher, you have a maths teacher, have somebody who's a specialist in that field. It's the same with spirit guides. They're going to send the best person forward for the job to guide you. So my main spirit guide, Jeremiah, is Egyptian, and I met him when I was training with the medium that we were talking about earlier. So I met him then. She gave me his name, although I did try and change it, and because I thought, you know, the mind comes in, you think, especially when you're just training as well, it's like, how much of this is my imagination and how much of it is actual communication? Is what she's telling me. I don't just want to take what she's telling me, even though she's giving me this information. I need to know myself that this is right. So I tried to change his name, and he was not happy with me at all. And he let me know in no uncertain terms that he wasn't very happy. He didn't like the shortened version of his name, and he wanted the full thing. And the way he let me know was when I was uncertain of his presence, I would say to him, like, you need to show me, you need to let me know that you're there. How do I know that I'm making this all up? It's all in my mind, and you're not really there. And they're going to send me off in a yellow van and lock me up somewhere. So he said, right, okay, I'm going to put a hat on your head. I said, okay. Now, bearing in mind that he's Egyptian, so he had one of those little fez hats.
Yes.
Originally, he has lots of different hats, but that was one of them. And he put that onto my head. And I'm telling you, it was the strangest feeling ever. Was feeling as though you've got something stuck on the top of you. It's like your glasses. You take the glasses off and you still feel as though you've got them on. It's the same with
Yeah.
the hat. It's like, oh my God. So I asked him to let me know that he was there. So with the name thing, when the name was given to me, because I didn't know his name for quite a while, with the name thing, I asked him, can I call you? And he said, no, my name is Jeremiah. And I went, how do I know for certain? Boom, the hat straight on the head. And it was like he'd plonked it down with some force. So I was very aware of what
Wow.
he was saying to me. So in the early days, he used that method of communicating with me. Now, I I am absolutely indebted to him, because without him, I would not be working as I'm working. So I know I don't need to see him or feel him there. I just know, it's the knowing when I know he's there. He's the one that helps me to interpret everything. You know, if I've got any personal problems, I go to him and I'll say, look, what do you think I should do about this? It's only his opinion, of course. You know, I still have to make my own
True.
choices, right? But he will give me his advice, because he can see a little bit of the bigger picture that maybe I can't see, because I'm too close-minded with whatever the situation is. I work with him totally with readings. He's the one that gives me my tick list. I work with him when I'm doing spirit rescue work. But I also have other guides as well. So I have Red Cloud that I work with, and he is one of my doorkeepers. He's very, very protective of me. And I talk to both of those every single day. I talk to both of them. Now, Red Cloud doesn't say very much to me, but how I got to know his name, I think, was quite remarkable. And this is what spirit do. This is how they communicate. A lot of people are under the misconception that as mediums, we can physically hear a voice. And some mediums are lucky enough to be able to do that. Some mediums are lucky enough to be able to physically see spirit. I don't. I don't see them like that. I don't hear them like that. It's all, you know, the little voices are in my head. Uh, but they're there, you know. And so
Yeah.
I know when Red Cloud is there simply by how he makes me sit. I sit straight, I stand straight, or one half of my face gets really hot to my ear, and one side of my neck gets really, really warm. And that's because he stands really close. And I've said to him, don't do that. Don't stand so close. He doesn't take any notice of me. That's what he does, because he's a protector with me. When I asked him his name, he didn't answer. I thought, oh, crikey, you know, as humans, we need to have a name. We've got to have a name, don't we?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, give
Yeah.
me a name. And he never said a word. It was just like this, standing like arms folded like that. Never said a word. And then all of a sudden, I had this beautiful sort of image in my mind. I thought, oh, he's sending me on a meditation. Lovely. He's trying to take my mind off things. And I saw a beautiful sunset, absolutely gorgeous, reds and golds, and oh, beautiful over water. It was really lovely. And I could just see the sun there, and it was just changing, just going down slightly. And then a cloud literally just went across my line of vision in front of the sun and stopped. And I've, I looked at it, and all of a sudden the penny dropped. That's his name, Red Cloud, because the cloud then became red. And I found that that's how some guides will work with you, very much an image. You know, it's like doing a
Yeah.
crossword, isn't it? And they give you the cryptic clues, not the coffee time clues, you know, but you've got
So
to figure
true.
it out. But so he is my doorkeeper, but I also work with him with Spirit Rescue. I work with him with a lot of different things. I have a spirit guide who I've worked with for a long, long time, and her name is Chandra. And she is the guide that I work with when I'm teaching. So it's her circle. She is the one that is, I'm just the messenger that here. And she is the one that interprets the meditations. She gives the meditations. So I will just repeat what word she's putting into my mouth there. So say this. And I have them written down, meditations written down for a class. And then blow me, won't she change it halfway through? And I'm reading it and it'll go completely blank, or I can't see properly. And then I think, okay, she's going to give me something else. And she just changes it. But she changes it because that's what's needed at that time for that class. So,
Right.
yeah. And then, of course, the
There's a
artist
lot of
guides.
trust. Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of you have to have trust, right? And a
Yeah.
type of faith in those
Mhm.
guides and in spirit to do this work. I don't think people always understand that.
I found that in North America, that the people I have met, certainly, a lot of them are not aware of their spirit guides, or don't feel the need to know them. And I think a lot of because I've talked to a lot of mediums who do platform work, or work in the spiritualist churches or otherwise, and they just allow whoever is coming through for someone in the audience, they're just working with that spirit energy at that moment, at that time. I this is me, you see. I'm quite a control freak person for myself. I have to be in control of situations. And if something is out of my control, I get out of my comfort zone, and my guides know that, my spirit guides know that. And so I have a doorkeeper, that I only, and especially with doing rescue work as well, I think it's like you have to have, because you're working blindly when you're doing that. So you have to have that trust there. So I have to have my spirit team there. And some of them are angels as well. I work with the Archangel Uriel, and sometimes with Archangel Michael. I work with different ones at different times with Raphael, depending on what I'm doing, whether it's healing or whatever it is, I'm working with. And so you've got to have that trust. And I need to know that they're there. I need to know that. They're not bothered whether I know or not, but I need to know, because that helps me then to figure out the difference between my imagination and communication. So I can say,
Right.
especially with spirit rescue work, because when you're doing a reading for someone, whether it's you're a platform medium giving a message to someone in the audience, or whether you're doing a personal one-to-one reading with someone, you get immediate feedback from that person. It's either yes, no, or oh yes, that's wonderful. I understand who this person is. But when you are doing spirit rescue work, you haven't got that, because you're simply working with a spirit entity who is needing help in whichever way, shape, or form, which is why the research is so important, to me, certainly, that you can then go away and research on rescue mediums. We have Edna Dargy, who is absolutely fantastic with her research, and she goes
Yeah.
away and gets all that information after we've done the rescue. So yeah, but you're working blindly, so you do need to have that trust. You need to know that spirit are there watching your back and making sure you're going to be okay at all times.
I know that in several cases, you had the experience in Rescue Medium where you were overshadowed.
Mm,
That's what they call it, right? You obviously do your own sort of preparation, but can you sort of let me know what what the backstage is like? Is it that you set your intention that you're going to be that rescue medium, if you will, and do the release, and that you have your team with you? Do you always know? You don't always know what you're walking into. Somebody
mhm.
will say, "My home is haunted," or "I have ghosts in my house," but then you walk in. But that experience of being overshadowed, is there an agreement you have beforehand with spirit? Like, how does that work?
We allow the overshadowing, in order to get the story across. Sometimes the spirit you are communicating with may be scared, may be very troubled, maybe uh, they're just being aggressive for whatever reason. And it usually is fear based. When people say, oh, I have a really nasty
Yeah.
spirit in my house, oh my God, it's really, really nasty. And then when you get there, and they say, oh, he's evil, this is an evil spirit. Well, it's about, let's cut through all the layers and find out nobody is born evil. No one is born with that
Right.
intent. So what has happened to make that person the person that they became? What has that person gone through that they are now in this situation, that they don't want to leave that building, or they're haunting that person or whatever? Why are they there, and why are they acting in the way that they are? So I class it as spirit counseling. This is a counseling session we're going to do. We're going to find out what is your Achilles heel? Why is this happening here? And sometimes in order to do that, you have to allow them, well, you don't have to, but we do, allow them to overshadow so that we can walk that journey with them and we can find out what's happening. So even though sometimes it looks like it's not controlled, it's always controlled because we have our spirit team the other side and us here. So it with rescue mediums, so there's me and Alison that are walking side by side, watching each other's backs, and our spirit team. So Alison's got a spirit team, I've got a spirit team, and that is one hefty team together here. And we work with each other like that. So even though, like, she may get overshadowed, I may get overshadowed, we allow it to happen. It is an agreement, as you say, that we have made to say we need to do this in order to get the story across because we need to find out why. And it can take hours. You know, what you see on the screen is like the show is 28 minutes or whatever. So it can take hours of negotiating, of this counseling sort of thing to happen. So to allow them to overshadow, it cuts to the quick a little bit. So that's why we allow it to happen. But we're always in control, even though it does take it out of you. We are in control of the situation. I mean, thankfully, it doesn't happen every time.
No, but when you see it happen and you don't have the information, or some people could see that as a fearful situation. They don't
Mhm,
know the preparation you've done and the training you've done, that you allow that spirit to communicate and express themselves.
mhm,
And
mhm.
since you've probably been in many places, not only on rescue mediums, that's the other thing I think people need to know about you is that even though you did that on that TV show, you get called to a lot of different situations.
Yeah.
Well, the people that live in a lot of these homes, do you feel that their energy, not by coincidence maybe, has something to do with the experiences? Do they attract, contribute, or are they just the unfortunate owners of a home where somebody is trapped, loved their home, and didn't want to leave their home and passed in their home? What do you think about that?
Yeah, both. Both.
Yeah,
It can be that you know, you move into a home that's already got its otherworldly
quirkiness.
inhabitants. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, and or it could be connected to the land, of course, and not house. Or
right.
it could be that someone has brought that entity in with them, that spirit energy in with them. Um, or it could be that you're going through a situation that spirit can connect with. It's a similar journey to their journey. So therefore, they're reaching out for help and they'll say, oh, yeah, she'll understand me. She's going through the same thing. That's what I had, you know. So they will attach themselves to a property or to a house for that reason. Or it could be that they're wanting to control a situation, you know, that they couldn't control
Mm,
in there. I'll tell you what we do have quite a lot of, or whether it's here or on the show or whatever, is that you find that there can be layers of energy, different layers of energy from different generations and different. So let's just say, for example, you have a couple who have lived in a house in 1862 and something traumatic has happened to that family, and then they've gone, all passed away, and then another family has moved in and something traumatic has happened to that family. So then same thing. So then you go on, and then the next family that move in, nothing traumatic has happened to them, but what happens is there's a feeling of unsettlement. So they might have had a really nice relationship, but then they start to argue and they don't know why, and then that family move out. Another, and they leave residual energy. So you've got all of those layers of residual energy which act like a magnet, and it pulls to it other negative energy. So sometimes it's not a case of clearing spirit out of the house because they're not there. It's a case of let's do maybe some healing energy here. Let's clear away everything, the layers. It's like having, layers and layers of dust, and we need to get rid of it all. And then we need to wash, the surface in order to cleanse everything. It's the same. It's a spiritual cleansing where you work through all of the layers of energy within the house in order to get to the what happened originally that started this all off. And that's where the healing really takes place then is, but you can't just go dive straight in because you've got too much on the top. So yeah, the residual energy
Right.
is something that needs to be shifted and moved and cleansed and healed. So it's not always spirit that are present. It's what's been left behind.
See, that's interesting, and I really believe that as well. And I think sometimes people obviously don't always think about that. And just think about if you purchase antiques, right? Or
Mhm.
uh, I just think that kind of healing is important and fantastic. And I think people should be aware of it, right? When you have all that energy around you. I don't always think people think about the layers
Yeah.
that you just described.
Yeah, and it's interesting you should mention about,
Yeah. Um,
antiques or something like that, because we have been called into homes in rescue mediums as well as in other cases where there has been a spirit attachment to an object. And then we've had to detach them. It's like, why are you attached to this? You don't have to go around being attached to a picture frame or whatever. What is the reason for that? Or that their energy, it's an energy that's attached there, because maybe somebody's been holding a photograph in this particular frame. You've got a different picture in the frame now, but maybe it held a picture of somebody they love very much, that passed away, and they keep holding it to them, and and so their grief is part of that picture frame. So there's a lot of healing energy that's just it's an emotional vibration that's been left as a residual energy. So yeah.
well, I know this is not exactly the same, but this makes me think of the work you do in past life regression. And I'm sure when you do that, both probably you and the clients sometimes are probably very surprised by some of the things you must uncover for the individual. That also can be incredibly healing for people, and they don't always know that this is available to them. Sort
Yeah.
of you
Oh,
could do
it's
years of therapy, but you go to one past life regression therapy and you're like, "Oh my god, I have the answer." Right?
exactly, yes, because it's all about self work. I think past life regression is a fascinating subject. And I think it's something that we should all explore at some time or other. I like to allow my client to experience the past life themselves rather than going to the Akashic records and getting the Akashic book out and saying to them, this is who you were in a previous lifetime, which of course we are able to do, but I think you need personal experience of this. You need to be able to feel it and experience it yourself. So when I do past life regression, I take the client on a little meditation, and then we go into, there's about 5 different methods that I use. But one of them is, walking down a corridor, lots of doors on either side, and then behind each door there is a previous lifetime. Obviously, that's in a nutshell. But so
Yeah.
let's just say we go to door number 7, and you open the door and you go through. So it's like, what do you experience? What is the first thing you see when you go through there? What do you feel? And it could be that the client is really surprised because what they see is maybe a scene from the Wild West, or they could be seeing, I don't 1920s Paris. It
Yeah.
could be anything there. It's the first thing that comes to mind when you are opening that door and going through. So what I do is I ask a series of questions that lead, one question will lead to another. So the answer that that person gives to me then will help me to formulate the next question, because I want the client to explore that life as much as possible. So some people don't want to talk back to you because they're so deep in the moment and having a
Right.
good look around, and others are wanting to tell you, and I don't have to ask hardly any questions because they are exploring and telling me. So one of the ones that really sticks in my mind is I actually did this in Canada,
Mm.
and I regressed this gentleman, and he said that he was sitting in a garden, and as he was sitting in the garden, he was aware of family being all around him, and he was more or less he was an older man, and he felt it was the end of his lifetime. And he was looking back, and as he looked back, he was aware of being in a Roman costume, but like a Roman army costume, and he felt that he was on a battlefield or not far from a battlefield. He described the tent that he was sleeping in and the people that were there, and he was very, very descriptive of the area. And this is a man who had no interest whatsoever in Roman history at all, none whatsoever.
Mm.
So the information that he was giving was quite unique, even to what the horse smelt like, what what the saddle was like, and what the his sword was like. He was really describing a lot of things, and I think he gave the name of like a commanding officer or something. Um, and then he went back to being back in this garden with family all around him, and he had children, all girls. And then
Wow.
he was in bed, and then his wife was there, and his girls were all around him, and he passed away very peacefully, and he was able to recall being in between lives. Now that is a subject all on its own.
Totally.
So because Edna Dargy, who is our head of research in rescue mediums, was with us, she made notes of everything he said, and he gave so much information that she was able to go and research it and found out what regiment he was in.
Come on.
Yeah, honestly, it was amazing. And she found out what battles he was in. Now, the interesting thing about that one was he received a leg injury in one of the battles. I think it was sawed through the leg or just above the knee. And when he was on his deathbed looking back, he sort of went, "Oh my gosh, I've only got one leg," and we sort of explored that a little bit. And he said he lost it, but not in battle. It was so I think there'd been an infection that had come years
Right.
later, and he'd lost part of the leg, but he didn't realise until right at that. It's like it wasn't an important thing to him. What was more important was his wife and his children. And anyway, when we were talking about it afterwards, because I always talk to the client afterwards about their experiences, I said to him, have you had any problems with your leg now in this lifetime? And he said, well, it's funny you should say that. He said, because I've got a problem with my knee, and the doctors can't fathom out what's wrong with it. I've had x-rays and nothing's come to light. He said, but sometimes the pain is so intense with it. Well, since having that regression, he's never ever had a problem with his leg, which
And,
I thought was awesome.
it is awesome. I just actually, just before you came on the podcast, I was talking about that. And when you have, sometimes when you get that information, you can't explain it, but it heals you in this lifetime in a way that can be just like that for the gentleman.
Yeah,
He doesn't even realize it's happened, but knowledge and release, kind of releases you from that lifetime.
yeah. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he experienced that rather than me saying to him, I can see this in your Akashic record, I can see this is who you were and this is what happened. So he experienced it himself and he felt everything himself. So it made perfect sense to him. And the interesting thing was, I said, did you recognize anybody from your regiment that you maybe know today? You know, did you recognize the essence of them? He said, no, not from the regiment. He said, but I recognize my wife at the time. So I said, oh, who is she? He said, she's my wife today. And they are like soulmates, those two. I mean, they really are meant to be together.
That's so lovely.
Yeah,
That is so
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
As the
yeah.
medium, now maybe, I don't do past life regression, so I don't know. But as a medium, do you also see what he is seeing at the time that he's describing, or are you holding a different position?
No, you're absolutely right. I do. I link in. It's a bit naughty, I suppose, really, linking in like that. But
No, no,
it's
no.
like, yeah, I do link in, and sometimes I link in on purpose
Yeah,
because, I mean, some of it, you know, if somebody tells you a story, if somebody reads you a story, you can see it in your mind's eye. You know what it, you
absolutely.
know, you
Yeah,
go through it. So some of it is just that I'm just following the story that they're telling me. However, if it's a story that's quite deep and I'm maybe concerned as to how they're going to handle that, whatever that is. I ask to be linked to that energy from that time period to see a little bit of the bigger picture so I can guide with the next question.
right, right. Yeah, because sometimes somebody's unwinding something difficult,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah.
And might not be as peaceful as the gentleman that you just described.
Yeah, I mean, I've had clients that have been absolutely sobbed uncontrollably, you know, because maybe they've lost a child in a previous lifetime or the love of their life, you know, and in this lifetime they, you know, they're still searching for that, the love of their life, you know.
Yeah,
So, so I would have to generate the questions in a way to accept that that was then and this is now, and having had that knowledge from, we can take the positive part of that aspect from then and bring it forward to now. But any of the negative aspect, it's gone. We can't change it. It is the past. We need to leave it in the past. And so we go to like a healing room. I always bring in a big red comfy armchair. There's a big
nice.
red comfy armchair that they can sit in, and then we ask the spirit world to bring in healing angels or healing guides to come in to help with whatever needs to be healed at that time in order to move forward. So there's very, very much a healing process, whether it's just remembering what happened, acknowledging what happened. And on the flip side of that, you know, you get people who have been, they're so enthused by what they're seeing that it's given them great ideas now for the future. And
That's
they're meant to
fantastic.
remember that. They're meant to go, oh yes, that's when I invented the wheel. That's when I did that, you know. That, you know, that's a herb that I used at such a time that helped in that situation. Maybe I should try that now, you know. So it's remembering, let's remember all the positive stuff. It's not just about working through things that are need to be healed or just an understanding. It's also what can we bring forward? Everything that we've learned in every lifetime, what can we bring forward so that we use that knowledge now to help us now?
So true. That is so true. And I think it's important to have someone to guide you because
Mhm.
sometimes, like you said, you can sort of be overwhelmed with the details and somehow the details are important. But it's important to have a guide or a support as you go through that to help you do just that, the healing and finish in a positive note, I would imagine.
Yeah, and sometimes we go from one lifetime to another, because some lives, not everybody's life is like full of, if you think, with stuff going on every day, like marvelous things, unless you're a Hollywood, whatever, where you've got all sorts of things going on. We all live just ordinary lives. And
Yeah.
so if you were to categorize things as that happened at that sort of time of my life, this happened at such and such a time in my life, then I think that's important also to put into the context of what you're experiencing. I usually find that one of the questions that I'll say is, how old are you? Depending on what response I'm getting, how old are you? So say that person is like 43, but when I ask them how old they are, they might say 6. And so, well, what's happening to you at 6? And then we move forward. We'll move forward maybe 5 years, move forward 10 years, and we'd skip through it so that we can land on important parts of that life, parts that have your memory has retained from that lifetime for whatever reason, whether it's a negative or a positive thing. Let's work through that lifetime. And some lifetimes can be quite negative from start to finish.
Right.
Like a street urchin that lived in London, and had to steal apples in order to survive, and then they died at a young age. So like, what can we get that's positive out of that? Well, do you know what? They had a best mate, and that best mate was, all they had in the world, but they learned friendship as a result of that. So it's how we work through things. And so we might come out of door number 6 or 7 or whatever number we went to, and then we might go through a different door to see if there is a balance in that one, or if we've encountered a problem in number 3, has that problem come from maybe number 10?
Mhm.
Which one has it come from? So it's an ongoing thing. I love it. It's absolutely fascinating, and I regress myself because I'm just nosy. I like to know what's going on.
That's great. It's a wonderful tool. I just wanted to go back a bit. You spoke of the Akashic records, and I know, we use them as mediums, but could you describe that for listeners?
The way I see the Akashic records, and of course everybody has their own view of something. So
Mm,
um, the way I see a beautiful white building. It's almost like a white Grecian temple with marble steps leading up and marble columns, and I go through double doors, and I'm in a hallway. Now in the hallway there's lots of different rooms going off from this. So I always ask to be taken to um, maybe the Akashic Records, or I can go to, because that's the Hall of Knowledge, and we can go to
mhm.
the Akashic Records. I can go to the Hall of Great Creativity. I can go to the philosophy room. There's lots of different rooms you can go where you can learn things. This is how I see it. So when I'm going to do Akashic record work, I go to what looks like the biggest library I've ever seen in the world. So
Mm.
opening the door, there's usually an Akashic guide there. Now the Akashic guide I see has a long white beard. He's bald headed. He doesn't seem to have any hair, and he's quite academic looking. I don't always see the same person, but that's who I see usually when I go in, and I ask him for the Akashic record for whoever I am going to be working with. So let's just say I'm working on a missing persons case. So
Okay.
I would say you've got to bear in mind that you need permission. You can't just go in and get anybody's Akashic record out. You need
Right.
permission. So if in the case of a missing person, then uh, that person is wanting to be found, or their loved ones are wanting that person to be found. So in order to understand what has been happening, we need to look at the Akashic record for that person in this lifetime to be able to understand what's happening with them. If we are looking at the Akashic record of someone who wants to know what their past lives were, then um, we have the permission of the person who wants the Akashic reading. Okay, so you say to the Akashic guide, I would like to look, just like you would in a library, I'd like to get such and such a book out today, please, to have a look at. I'd like to look at that person's record. It could even be mine. I could say, I'd like to have a look at my Akashic records, please. And, you're either guided to a section of the library with a book that you can physically take out, or the guide will bring a book to you. And there are a number of different ways of being able to read the Akashic records. In this case, if you're looking at a person, or you're looking at yourself, or you're looking at past life work, the information is not like you can open it and read it like a book. Some mediums can do that. I can't do it like that. I use my hand chakras. So I use I get hold of it. I told you I'm a touchy-feely person, so I like to hold the book, and
Yeah.
then I feel, what does this book feel like? What's the energy of it telling me? And I use my third eye and my throat chakra to be able to connect with the information contained within the book through images that appear in my head. So sometimes I'll open the book and scan the pages with my hand, and then I'll say, just show me what I need to know. Show me a picture of what I need to learn, either about this person or what I need to learn about a situation, and then pictures will start to appear in my head. Different people have different methods of doing that, of course. And there's
Yeah.
so much we can learn from the Hall of Knowledge. There's so many different areas. One of the areas that I go to is the Great Hall of Creativity, and I go there to get inspiration from spirit guides who are artists, or are writers, any creative field. You can go and you can either watch them work, or they will give you ideas of how you can work, or how you can work through them. I just like going in, like I say, I'm nosy. I like going and having a nosy and seeing who's up to what. uh,
I really believe that people, if they only knew, if a lot of people knew just how inspiring your inner life can be, or your relationship with spirit, if you will, and that you can do those things, and
yeah,
that if you are trying to solve a problem, um, that this is available to you. And I find it interesting, because I always think, oh, gee, more people should know, right? I forget, and then I start to think about it. It's it's fantastic, isn't it,
it is.
when you
Yeah.
do this work?
Yeah, and the key, of course, to any spiritual work is meditation. When you meditate, your vibrations raise, and you're giving yourself the best present you can anyway, because you're giving yourself your own time,
Right.
which we don't do, often enough, really. And so, of course, the Akashic records are accessible through meditation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it literally means the kasha, it is sky, it's knowledge in the sky. And as humans, we look up and we go, oh, that's the sky, that's where heaven is, or the spirit world, or what, I call it the summerlands, but whatever we call it.
Yeah.
And then you look down and you go, oh, that's where, hell is, or that's where whatever. It depends what your interpretation is. But of course, it's the way I see it, and it's only my opinion, is
Yeah.
that it's a different vibration. You're in a different dimension, that's all. So we look up to connect with the spirit, and that's because it's not a little place sat up there in the sky. It's actually all around us, but it's a vibrational lift up
Yes.
that we connect
Yeah.
with, and so that is where the information is stored. It's the universal knowledge. It's accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
However, it is accessible through meditation or, and people go, oh, I can't meditate. I just can't meditate. Well, of course you can. Everybody daydreams. Everybody has a daydream, and that's what we do. When we daydream, we disconnect with our body and our mind goes on a journey. So
Yep.
when we meditate, all we're doing is consciously tapping into something that we do subconsciously all of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I want to ask you another question, and I'm curious. I saw this on YouTube, and I just thought it was fantastic that you did this and that you shared with your viewers. You talked about your premonition list, and you've talked about it as your tick list as well.
Mhm.
I understand how it works, and maybe for the listeners you can describe. But my question is, once you've created that list, is that something you refer to at the end of the day? Or is it something that you refer to throughout the day when you're working for clients?
Um, No, I always start at the beginning of the day. So,
Right,
yeah, so it's when I ground myself and do my protection, then I open my chakras, and then I connect with my spirit guides
right.
every single day. When I am working with spirit. So if I have a list of my clients in, so like today, I've had the clients in, and all on Zoom at the minute, obviously because of lockdown. Um,
Yeah,
but I asked my spirit guide to give me a list of things. This is after I've opened my spiritual doorway and allowed spirit to come in who want to connect with anyone that I'm working with today on the earth plane. And then I asked my spirit guide to give me a list of things for the day. So it could be for the clients of that day, or if I'm going to do an investigation, it will be connected to the investigation. Um, so today's list that I've got written in front, well, it's right here in front of me. So on this list today, everything's ticked off bar a couple of things. And what I find is you get a double whammy of things. And by that, I mean, 3 people might connect to one thing. So one person, so on this list, I've got the name Peter. So today, 2 people have connected to Peter. So one person connected to Peter was on the earth plane, the other one connected to Peter who is in spirit. And I never know who these are for or why they're given at the beginning. So what I do is with each person that I'm reading for, I start my reading with this list. I find it's a great icebreaker, for somebody who may be very nervous about having a reading done, or they're not quite sure, what they want out of the reading. So this is a way of putting them at their ease. What it does is it gets them to respond to me, and I can hear their voice because spirit work on a voice vibration.
right.
So if I was to say the name Peter, then the person said, oh, yes. Yes, I understand the name Peter. And if I was to say, I have Peter in spirit, then they say, oh, yes, yeah, my uncle Peter is in spirit. Or then I would say, the name Peter, but that Peter connects to the earth plane. Oh yeah, my brother is called Peter and he's still alive. It's that sort of feeling. So I go through that list right the way through. Some things, sometimes one person will say yes to everything, and
That's
as we know,
fantastic.
sometimes they do in the audience anyway, simply because they want to say yes to it all.
Yeah.
But sometimes people say yes to maybe one or two things, and then as we go through the reading, because I do a half an hour pure mediumship. And then I do about half an hour with cards, but I use my cards, and I use different cards. I don't always use the same deck. I work with them clairvoyantly. So it's not, it can be the generic meaning on the card, but mostly it's information that's coming from, say, I'm working with Grandad in spirit, or I'm working with Peter because Grandad's name's Peter. Yeah. And so we're talking to Grandad Peter, and he is the one that is telling me what to look for in the cards. And it usually connects with either something on the list, or it'll connect with what we've been talking about previously during the half hour of mediumship. or it can connect to a particular question that the client has, and then the answers will come through the cards, but also mediumistically.
Wow. So,
So
can you give our listeners an example or two of just a time when you were doing your mediumship that you were just left in awe, or that both you and your client were left in awe? Because you've been doing this for a while, but I'm sure there's times where you finish and you're like, oh my goodness.
yes, spirit never failed to amaze me with the information that they give. One of the things that sticks out in my mind um, was, and I didn't get the awe thing right there and then, is the lady's husband had passed away, and she came to me wanting to communicate with him. He was really good at communicating, and just before we finished, he said, I'm not sure if the name of this was right, but I'm just gonna say for whatever sake, he gave the name of Eric. And she said, I don't know who Eric is, no idea who Eric is. And he was chuckling. He thought this was funny. So I said, well, you're going to have to let me know who Eric is. Well, it was about 2 weeks down the line, and she called me. She said, you're never going to believe this. She said, I'm going to send you a photograph, and then I'll call you back. So she sent me this photograph through, and she was at an airport, and she was going to get on board this plane. And as she looked out of the window, the plane had Eric written on the side of it. And honestly, she rang me back, and yeah, and she was laughing, and I thought, oh my goodness, that that one blew me away, because it hadn't even happened yet, you know, and she needed to know that he was going to be with her on that flight.
Wow.
And being given a name like that, you think, oh, she's going to meet somebody, and they're going to reassure her, or she's going to be chatting to somebody, and they'll say, oh yeah, his name's Eric. But no, there it was, blazoned on the side of that. It was the first time she'd been away without him. And so yeah, so that one, I think, really, really blew me away. Another one was uh, a, a money box that I was shown, and the money box was a Yogi Bear, a Yogi Bear thing. And I thought, I can't say Yogi Bear to her. She'll think I've lost the plot. You know, and it would. So we carried on with the reading, and then no, Yogi Bear kept showing me Yogi Bear, Yogi Bear, Yogi Bear. I thought, no, I can't. And this is one of those things where you've got to learn to trust what they're giving you. It's not
Right.
yours to keep; it's yours to pass on. And I was making a decision that I had no right to make. I was making the decision not to pass that message on, because I thought my ego got in the way, and I thought, oh no, it's me. I'm just making it up. It's me. Poof. You know, in the end, they were so insistent. I said, oh, I'm really sorry about this. It could just be me, but I have been told to say Yogi Bear money box. And she nearly fell off a chair. And I thought, oh, she obviously, she really thinks I've lost her. She's just going to get up and walk out now. But she burst into tears, and her grandmother had given her a Yogi Bear money box when she was a little girl, and she still had it. And it was her grandmother that we were talking to in spirit.
Wow.
So yeah, so things like that blow me away. And it taught me a very valuable lesson as well. Don't hang on to something just because you think it's stupid. It's not yours to hang on to, it's yours to pass on for whatever reason, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So
That's thank you for that story. That's a very honest story. And you're right. Sometimes you want to do your best and give your best. And you're right. Sometimes just out of the need to give your best, you might not give something like that. But good. I find spirit does get insistent. If you miss something,
mhm,
they just like you said, they encourage you to say it, right? Or describe it, or
yeah.
there's so many different aspects and such depth to mediumship. And I'm just wondering what you might want people to know about mediums or mediumship?
Um, the object of the medium is to provide that life is continuous, that when we pass through the doorway that we call death, that our spirit survives. That's what spirit is. It's a spirit within, and that's what survives. And I think the medium's job is to provide that proof as much as we possibly can that that your dad or your mum or your brother, sister, best friend, auntie, uncle, grandparents, they have survived and they are around, and they want to make that connection, and they want to let us know that they're simply a thought away. And although we can't see them physically, we can connect with them in a different way. It's just understanding how they're trying to connect with us. But they also want to help and guide us with our everyday life, just as they would here. And I always start my readings with, saying to the client, can you tell me the purpose of your reading? If you start to tell me too much, I'll tell you to stop. So I don't want to know, I want this reading because, I want to know about what's going to happen, blah, blah. Or I want to know, is Uncle Joe okay? Just tell me, do you want more mediumship, or do you want direction? Because spirit will come in and they will, just like they would in everyday life, put the kettle on, let's have a brew and we'll sit and have a natter, shall we? Because they will, and they'll talk about all sorts of things, and if you don't suddenly sprout wings and become an angel when you go over there. So if somebody liked to talk about themselves a lot when they were on the earth plane, you know what, they're still going to talk about themselves now. And you might be thinking, oh, well, I've just got this problem I need help with, and they're going, well, do you know what happened to me today? So yeah, I love my job. I absolutely love it, and I can't imagine not having that in my life. It's a way of life. Mediumship, knowing that my dad is there, knowing that my brother is around, gives me great comfort, and I hope that the work that I do gives others comfort too, whether it's spirit rescue work, or whether it's mediumship, or whether it's in tutorials or past life regression.
Jackie, thank you so much for being my guest today. It was inspiring and insightful, and I know people will learn a ton from our conversation today. So
Oh,
thank you.
thank you, Gillian. I've had a wonderful time.
If you'd like to learn more about Jackie or get a reading from her, you can connect with her at www.jackiedennison.com. So, friends, what a conversation. I think it's safe to say that Jackie Dennison has really devoted her life in a form of service to spirit that is so clear. And she does it with enthusiasm and a true love of working with spirit. I mean, she has a complete trust in her spirit guides. But then when you think about how she helps others, when they come for a reading, like many mediums, they connect with someone's loved one and help reassure people that life continues. Then she also does the rescue work. She helps spirits who are stuck move to the light or move to wherever they need to go. Then, when you also take a look at all the other modalities that she works in, especially the past life regression that we kind of focused on today, and the reminders of the Akashic records. And as a medium myself, and as someone who loves to study all things sort of spiritual, it was a good reminder that, we can all access this information. And I think part of the reason I do this podcast and I talk to all these different mediums is, you know, I really believe anyone can learn to do this. But as she said today, if you just sit quietly and sort of set your intention, maybe daydream, but you can go to those halls of knowledge and creativity Thank you, Jackie, for the reminder that we can go and access that information. And I know she says she thinks she's nosy, but she's not. I think that nosiness that she speaks of is really just deep down curiosity, a curiosity on how she can help others. Well, friends, that concludes our episode. Thank you for joining us. Tales from the Reading Room is produced by Susan Edwards and Katie Balfour, and is produced and hosted by me, Reverend Jillian Edwards. Special thanks go to our guest, Jackie Dennison, and all the music on this episode was created by purpleplanet.com. That's purple-planet.com. Thank you for listening. See ya!